welcome to Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast with your hosts, Buddy Sotello Esquire and Evan Ginzburg and Mike Leno. Mike Leno, do you want to introduce our very special guest for this evening?
I had to dig down to South America to get this. Everybody knows him. Total legend in wrestling. Obviously a genius at speaking, rhyme and wrestling, author, philanthropist. He has done everything. Comes from one of the great wrestling families. His father, Angelo Poffo, total legend for decade after decade, was known worldwide. Obviously, we know Randy Savage, for everything. And their work together as a tag team in Memphis. Lanny inducted him at WWE's Hall of Fame in 2015 in San Jose. I was there. And Evan and I have known Lanny forever, and we love and respect him. And I will shut up and let you guys ask away.
Welcome to our show, Lanny Poffo, for our one-year anniversary show. I'm so proud to have you as our guest.
It's an honor to be on your great show.
So, well, first of all, I have so many questions for you, but I'd like to start out, first with like your beginnings. And obviously, you didn't grow up like a lot of other folks did. You were already involved in a wrestling family. Tell me what it was like to grow up in your household with your father and your brother being so involved.
Yeah, I was the beta male of the family. And now, due to lack of competition, I've become the alpha male. And I get to make all the unpopular decisions, like moving to Manta, Ecuador. And I just want to say that Mike Leno and Evan Ginzburg, two of the best people you'll ever meet. One is a great dentist. The other is a hell of a teacher. And also an author and entrepreneur. And we get along very well. Many roads traveled.
Yep. Absolutely. But tell me what it was like. Tell me a little bit about your memories of first finding out that your father was a professional wrestler and what that meant to you growing up.
It meant nothing to me. I thought everybody's father was a professional wrestler. I thought it was a very normal thing. But then I noticed there were more people in the audience than there were in the ring. And then I realized this is a little odd here.
Yeah. Absolutely. So tell me, like, when you were growing up, what was some of the favorite, like, memories that you have of your father being in the ring and maybe some of his best opponents that he worked with?
I remember a moment where they were in the Sam Houston Coliseum, and they did the deal where Pepper Gomez was going to prove he had a tougher stomach than my father, who was the world sit-up holder. So Pepper jumped on my father's belly, and then my father's turn to jump on Pepper's belly, and instead came down with a knee drop across his throat, sending him to the hospital after he bit a prophylactic and put blood all over his chin. And they took him away, and that caused nothing but revenge of the nerds. So,
what year was that? Because that was duplicated. Ray Stevens did it with Pepper Gomez. A succession of baby faces would jump off a ladder. And they did that in the AWA later on, mid-'70s with Bob Lewis.
This was, I think, 1961, 62.
Yeah, so you guys probably came up with it first before Ray Stevens and Pepper did it for Roy Shire.
It was definitely Pepper's idea.
Yeah, he took that with him also to Australia years later. But your dad, Angelo, and remember, elaborate to everybody. Every time I've done radio with you and Evan, we always talk about Angelo Poffo being in the Guinness Book of World Records, Ripley's Believe It or Not, all of that. How many sit-ups and it was
6,033 consecutive sit-ups, and the Macho Man came up to me before the funeral and says, "Here's the deal. I need for you to write a poem for Dad, but don't make it long and boring, because you can be long and boring." So I said, it was back in 1945 on Independence Day. The Nazis had surrendered. Japan was on its way. My dad was in the Navy. As history will tell, as he was bleeding through the mats, a world record fell. He did 6,000 sit-ups with an extra 33 to glorify our Savior, who died on Calvary. and Robert Ripley's feature celebrated this event. Giving credence to success is not an accident. That's always been his motto through times both good and bad. He's the real Hall of Famer and the world's greatest dad.
Wow. Wow. God, you didn't even stumble. That came right straight to the front of your memory there.
I
That's
stumbled
really
a little, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look to my left, your right, there's a beautiful woman.
Yeah.
A mujer. She is a mujer. She is way too pretty for me, but I just took I just had a dusha or a regadera or a shower, as we say in Espanol. And she is from actually Guayaquil, and she's moved to Manta, and I'm not going to tell you her name, but I will tell you that I've never been happier. What a wonderful, beautiful person, and I'm glad she can't see straight.
Felicidades.
Felicidades. That's a dentist, a dientes, and that's a profesor.
and a lawyer for whatever it means.
You're
whatever that's
abogado?
worth.
Abogado.
Yes.
We have a lawyer, a doctor, and a teacher.
We need an Indian chief.
Uh-oh.
We'd have everybody. We'd have.
Was not a real Indian.
No, absolutely not.
Important to mention, though, I know we're off track, is that Randy, the Macho Man, started his career and was equally famous in baseball. You know, that association with the St. Louis Cards, that his fellow wrestling historians like George Shire always mark out for when we discuss that. You know, and I think Randy had some injury or something, and then, you know, came along with you guys to Detroit. That was where I first heard of you guys working, well prior to your legendary Memphis days as a tag team. And gosh, the ICW, that fantastic promotion that kind of broke all the rules and changed the industry on so many levels. Decades before, we'd see WCW, ECW, and you know, Vince's WWF all clawing and scratching at each other.
Yeah, I want you to know that in the ICW, I was responsible for none of that. All I did was be a good Catholic and pray, pay, and obey. And when it was time for us to challenge the other people, I did not take part in that because, number one, I think that's ridiculous. And number two, I cannot tell you how much I hate that. You know, now I'm 66 years old, and I'm trying to live my life in peace and harmony. And all I want to do is good things and not bad things. So
you've always done good stuff, Lanny, though. I mean, just what you did for me. I know I mention this all the time at the St. Louis convention. Evan was helping me out, that Sam Munchnick 1992 convention, when you came in, and you contributed so much. So everybody knows Lanny Poffo has always contributed positive things, not just to the wrestling industry, which is a microcosm for real life, but real life too.
Well, thank you. And I'll tell you what, I mark out for people like Lou Thez. Unfortunately, not so much for Ox Baker, but I knew him a little too well. And he came up to me that day and he says, Lanny, he says, I've always been nice to you, but you've never taken a shine to me. Why? I said, because I don't like you, Ox. Wow. And he says, why don't you like me? I said, Thomaston, Georgia, 1974. I said, we were in a battle royal, and he says, let's indoctrinate this kid. And he took his big club of a forearm, and he hits me right in the heart.
Ooh,
with a big forearm blow. And I went, oh. And I'll tell you, that guy was strong. And so what happened was, I said, you know, I thought you gave me a heart attack then because you hit me so hard in the chest. I said, what's amazing is life is a funny hill. And I was young and you were in your prime, and you could have beaten me then. But I think I could beat you now, but I'm too nice a person to do that now. Because he was on the way down and I was still hovering here. Just like, you know, now I'm on my way down. Everybody's got a hill that they pass. But you want to say that Eddie Farhat, the original Sheik, always was good to our family. And as soon as Randy got released for the third time in baseball, my dad came to him and says, "Hey, my oldest son is not going to play baseball. Is there any room for him to wrestle here?" And the sheik says, "I'll take care of you." And he brought him in, and boy, did he get over immediately. And I think let's say this: in 1975, he went to work for the original sheik in Michigan, Ohio, Ontario, and then guess what happened? 10 years later, he debuts in Madison Square Garden. Ooh, yeah.
And you and your dad were world tag champions for the Sheik, too.
The world tag champions of Ohio and Michigan and Ontario. Yeah, so let's not get crazy. When we went to St. Louis, we were not allowed to bring our belts anywhere.
Lanny, whenever we've done interviews, we always talk about your brother and your father and yourself, of course. Tell us about your mom's sacrifices having a husband and kids on the road all those years. It must have been difficult.
Well, my mother was Jewish. She was from Lithuania. My Zeta. What do you call it, Zadie or Zeta?
Zeta.
Yeah.
I've heard it both ways.
Right.
Okay, my Zeta was from Lithuania, and my bubby was from Belarus.
Mm.
But my father won the war and raised us Catholic. So right away, there was that trouble. And let's see, even now, she is buried in a Jewish cemetery. And I have agreed to be in a Catholic mausoleum with my father, but I'm going to wait a little bit first.
Yeah, wait. Yeah.
Yeah. And Marisol, if I die here, make sure that I'm already dead before you cremate me. Okay?
Yes.
She doesn't speak a word of English, but
We'll play the tape back for her if she needs it.
at least it means she's ready. Que liste, whatever that means. Okay. Anyway, but I plan to live to be 100, which is going to be coming up soon.
Yeah.
Now,
40 years.
can you tell me what it was like when you were working with your brother, but the WWE or any Fed that you were in didn't really make much of a mention that Randy Savage was your brother? How did it feel to like work with your brother, but they never talked about it?
Well, I wasn't the booker, so I just the only thing that counts is what the bank teller counts, and in Yiddish it's the gelt, right? Right, Evan, the gelt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get a few of my Yiddish terms.
There you go.
And so it was it always kind of like an inside joke that with you and your brother that nobody knew, that most people didn't know that you two were related unless they were really smart marks, because the WWF just never never mentioned anything about you two being brothers. And so for a lot of people, when they found out that you were Randy Savage's brother, there were a lot of people that didn't realize that, and they were surprised.
Well, I'll say this. George Scott and Vince McMahon saw one of Randy's videos in Memphis, and Vince McMahon got all excited, and he said, "We got to bring him in." So George Scott called up and everything, and Randy says, "Got any room for my little brother?" And he says, "Well, not on top, but what is he, a babyface or a heel?" He said, "I don't know. I'll ask him." "Hey, they don't have room for you on top, but what are you, a babyface or heel?" I said, "Well, if I'm not going to be on top, I might as well be a babyface, because I like that David Goliath thing." So about 5 years later, here I am, the genius full of glory and renown, and I had 4 months of main events. So ask me if it was worth it.
Was it worth it?
Hell yes, it was worth it. Even if I had never gotten the 4 months, it was still worth it.
Did you like being a heel, though, when you made the turn to be a heel? Was it?
Oh, yes. I was dying of stagnation. I had run that gimmick into the ground, and I needed a break. So I started. I had a new look, and I took it to extremes. And I'll have to say this: the greatest manager of them all, I think. Well, I mean, some people maintain it might be the Grand Wizard. Some people say Classy Freddie Blassie or Lou Albano. But I think we can all give points to Bobby the Brain Heenan. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
I mean, it's a matter of opinion. But I went up to Bobby Heenan and I said, look, they're going to make me the genius. And I'm feeling a little guilty because that's a little bit coming close to copyright infringement. And, you know, being you're the brain and I'm the genius, I don't feel good about that. And he says, no, that's great. As a matter of fact, if you're interested, I'll give you some tips. And I said, yes, I'm interested. Give me some tips. Now, I never became as great as Bobby Heenan, but I became better than I would have been if I hadn't been genius enough to learn from the brain.
What were those tips?
Oh, he had 100 things to get more out of the fans, get more out of the opponents, and get more out of the men in his stable. You know, the way he stood there, the way he acted. You know, I could go on and on. It would be he would always criticize me afterwards and then make a white bread sandwich of it. You're doing great, one little thing, and more white bread. That's easier to eat, you know? And he always did it. He always did it when he pulled me away, because you should never criticize a guy in front of the boys. It's demeaning.
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah, I love Bobby Heenan, by the way. And the first team he managed was Guy Mitchell, who became one of the Valiants, Jerry Valiant, and Joe Tommaso as the Assassins. And the second team he managed was Chris Markoff, Angelo Poffo, the Devil's Duo, Bobby Heenan. And so we knew him from way back when.
Were you guys really from Downers Grove, or was that sort of like a fictitious thing, or no?
I was from Downers Grove, Illinois.
Wow.
The most famous person was Shorty Powers. He did the 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 ignition blast off for the Rockets. And the other, Emu Phillips, the comedian, from Downers Grove. But the most famous guy from Downers Grove, Illinois, is Bill Ludwig of Ludwig Drums.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep.
And if you go after this show, go on YouTube and watch Ringo Starr. Okay, and you know, on the Ed Sullivan Show, you'll see the Beatles, and underneath it says Ludwig. That was his drums.
Wow.
By the way, I'm just wondering, have you had a chance to see the Young Rock TV show yet?
No, I didn't.
Okay, because I wanted to know what your thoughts were on the portrayal of your brother in the show. Hopefully, you'll have a chance to see it sometime soon, because it's right in that era.
My brother is portrayed in the show.
Yeah, they've got Arthur Sika, they've got Iron Sheik,
Andre,
the guys playing them, and the guy playing Randy kind of is a little on the skinny side. You'll see it. I don't know how much American program you guys get down there, if you can access it through the internet.
It's NBC prime time.
He's in South America, remember?
Well, I'll tell you what. I don't. I haven't been watching a lot of TV because I've been doing a lot of beach things and lady things.
Yeah,
but
you got the wife right there.
I'm going to tell Randy's widow about it and see if she wants to litigate.
Yeah, well, it's a fun show. I hope you have a chance sometime to see it, because it might, you know, put you back in that era. You might see some things that you remember Randy talking about or something like that. It's certainly an interesting throwback, you know, to the early era of the WWF and you know, what was going on with The Rock during that time. The
TV show, it's kind of confusing to follow for non-wrestling people. It is doing well in the ratings, but they focus on him, Dwayne, as a child, and of course he was born actually near me in Hayward, California. Then they moved to, you know, Hawaii, wherever Rocky was working, well before, you know, going to work for Vince Sr., whatever year that was, 82. And then they go to his high school years and a little bit later, and then they have Dwayne himself, like, doing the narrative, but he's being interviewed like one of the those, I don't know, shows like the Larry David Show, something like that. So he's commenting on the various aspects of his life. But when they have him as a child, they have guys playing Alpha, Sika, and so on in there. I'll send you a link, and
hopefully they'll cast someone as you, a young version of you, if
Well,
you're not available.
pay him first and pay Randy's widow if it's copacetic with her. She must know about it.
I have no idea, but I'll check it out. But I'll tell you what, I haven't been watching wrestling at all. Did Rocky Johnson's son ever make good in the business?
Yeah.
Hey, he's doing a little acting. He's doing a
The
little
funny
acting.
thing was I was with Pat Patterson at an OVW. That was the training thing Vince had. And Vince is also with his WWE. They're like co-partners on this TV show. So, but anyway, it must have been 94, 95, 94. It was 94. And Pat Patterson goes, not only is this kid going to be a star in wrestling, but I think he has it to, go well beyond that in the movies and TV. So Pat Patterson had an inkling that this kid had star potential, well beyond our biz.
I met him when he was about 6 years old. I was very impressed with him. First of all, he's so big for 6. And what a good-looking guy. I think he got the best of both worlds, being Canadian, African American, and Samoan.
Yeah.
I think he just got the best of both worlds. And he's, instead of being just a dime a dozen good-looking guy, he's got that exotic look.
And obviously the personality to really push things and be a big star. But I wanted to ask you a couple questions too about your time in the WWF, and I wanted to know, what was your favorite match working in the WWF that you can remember?
When I was Leaping Lanny, my favorite match was against Terry Funk, and then also Bob Orton Jr. and Harley Race, because I lost all 3 matches, and each time they had me looking. I wound up looking better than if I had beaten somebody. You see what I mean? They made me look good, and then I made them look good. But of course, I didn't have the guts to lead the match. Any of those 3, I wouldn't lead Terry Funk. Are you out of your mind? I wouldn't lead Bob Orton Jr., and I would never lead Harley Race. And they appreciated that. And but that was as Leaping Lanny. Naturally, as the Genius, my match with Hulk Hogan on NBC was my breakout match. And I said, there's only one man smart enough to put Hulk Hogan down. The Genius has a devastating plan. You're looking at the future World Wrestling Federation, who appeals to the modern thinking fan. When I emerge victorious with gold around my waist, I shall be the most splendiferous of all. Don't tell me Hulk is 6'8", and I'm just 6'2". Between the ears, I'm over 10 feet tall. He wants to wrap his 24-inch pythons around my neck and give his famous, "What you gonna do?" By the power of the Genius and the world's smartest man, I'll rely on my incredible IQ.
There you go.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. You just pulled them right off like you said it yesterday. That's really amazing.
The thing is, I love my gimmick, I love my poetry, and I still enjoy limericks. As a matter of fact, I was with this guy, and usually I can't do it because he has his wife with him or his friend who is a man of God. And this time it was just him and I. He's 80 years old, and I gave him the raunchiest limericks you've ever heard in your life. But
we don't have any kids in this audience, so you can go ahead and run it through if you want.
You have to pick your audience. You can't be. You want me to do one?
Yeah. We got no kids are my kids are out of the room right now, so I think you can get away with it.
There once was a lady named Alice. She used a dynamite stick for a phallus. They found her vagina in South Carolina and part of her anus in Dallas.
Wow. Wow.
Now that is awesome. That is worth the price of admission right there.
There once was a fellow named Lynn. His cock was the size of a pin. Said his girl with a laugh as she fondled his staff, "This won't be too much of a sin."
Yeah.
So then there was a young fellow from Kent. His dick was quite long and it bent. To save him some trouble, he folded up double, and instead of coming, he went. But now I'm going to give you one more and it is more vile than the putrid slime that lines the gates of hell.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
We're ready.
A lady from St. Clair Shores, her pussy was covered with sores. The dogs on the street wouldn't eat the green meat that hung in festoons from her drawers.
Wow.
Best
Now
dude.
now wait a minute. Ask me who taught me that one.
Who taught you that one, Lanny?
Tony Gurria.
Wow. I would have never thought he was the
Such a
master.
classy man, but you know what? Sometimes the trips are oh so long.
Wow.
You know, he
Wow.
married a wrestling fan. His latest wife. They come to Cauliflower Alley. They've come like the last 4 times we've had it. I mean, attended.
How many wives has he got now?
I'm not sure. This is the latest one, but she said she was a fan. You know, so similar to quite a few guys, like Campero Firpo's wife that he had all his kids with. She was a fan he met in the AWA when he was working for Byrne in the mid '70s. And, you know, it's nowadays almost everybody, they're all couples, you know, because they're in proximity all the time in AEW or WWE. All these folks, you know, Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins just had a baby and all of that stuff. So it's far different than the old days, because I don't think that many couples. There was Penny Banner was married to the guy in the wrestler North Carolina.
Johnny Weaver.
Yeah, and Betty Nicolai and Akio Sato, who was Baba's number 2 guy in the office, but he's also a worker all over the U.S. He wrestled before you and your family came into Detroit. He was teamed with Mitsu Arakawa, who your dad knew very well. And
Oh yeah, Mitsu Arakawa and Kenji Shibui.
Yeah.
And you know, when I was in Tokyo, I went to Shibui Crossing, and that was unbelievable. And anyway, you remember? You guys know Evan? I know you know Keith Elliott Greenberg, right?
Yes, the writer.
Yep.
Yeah, I sent a video of Shibui Crossing, and he says, "Isn't that great that they honored Kenji?" You know, which was not true. You know,
Yeah.
He just pulled that out of his.
Couple hundred
anyway,
years older than him, but yes.
Lanny, I just have one question that's been weighing on me. I used to teach at the Ecuadorian consulate in New York, adult English second language. And the Ecuadorian people are wonderful people. And I was there when the earthquakes were going on and they were recovering, and, you know, they all bonded together and helped each other. But it's still a big jump to me. I mean, I'm a lifelong New Yorker. To see you, you know, leave your country and move to another country. What was the motivation? It's a big move to leave your country.
Well, to the truthfully, I've met some Ecuadorians in Florida, and they talk so well about their native land. And then I was getting International Living magazine, and I was reading all about Ecuador. And I've actually taken exploratory trips to Colombia, Costa Rica, and Panama. And so anyway, I got some competition here, but this is my 3rd trip to Ecuador, and I decided Manta was my place because I wanted to be on the Pacific Ocean. And I'm in a condo called Las Olas, which means the waves. And I'm right on the ocean. Wow. And it's 70 degrees low, 80 degrees high every single day. Yeah, they have earthquakes here, but I'm not going to live in fear. You know, besides, it's too late to die young.
Right.
Now, are you a fluent Spanish speaker?
Yo estudio 2 años en la escuela de español, pero no es muy bueno gringo español. And I can get my face slapped in many, many countries.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Evan. Evan is learning a new language too over the years.
You know, when I first became what is that, Evan?
My Korean is like a 1-year-old. Mommy, daddy, thank you, hi, bye. I'm not really fluent in Korean, believe me.
감사합니다.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, then my first poem is The Genius. We did some vignettes. I did, behold the world's smartest man, so handsome and so proud, the epitome of genius. amazingly endowed. A one-man wrestling renaissance. Just let your heart rejoice and gaze in all the luxury of my poetic voice. I speak 11 languages. Escuchen, por favor. Santana comes from Mexico. Yo hablo muchos mejor. The French I speak is magnifique. They told me in Paris. My Italian's molto bene. I learned when I was 3. I speak Latin, Greek, and Russian, Hebrew, and Portuguese. I speak Swedish and Norwegian, and I'm learning Japanese. And then it goes on. But not a word of that was true.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
The best work is a work. But so can you tell me who did you really like watching when you were like backstage, and who were your contemporaries? Other than your brother, obviously, did you really like to see work in the ring?
when I was young, Johnny Valentine, Greg Valentine's father, and Pat O'Connor, I thought he was fantastic. And I was always tried to be like both of those guys, fell short, and had to become a clown. So, and so then, who did I like to see wrestle? Well, from my father's era, I'd say Pat O'Connor, and wasn't he great? And if you don't believe me, all you fans at home, get Buddy Rogers against Pat O'Connor, and you can see the greatest wrestlers of the early 60s.
I've got a tape of 75 at Kiel Auditorium in St. Louis when Bruiser and Gagne were sending some guys in, like his son Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell, but they sent in Ray and Nick, and Ray Stevens against Pat O'Connor was a 20-minute Broadway. So I have the footage of that, without audio, but I was shooting ringside, the stills. And that was one of the greatest matches I ever saw. And, Pat was in his, down period. It wasn't a spring chicken. And Ray had those two serious accidents, motorcycle accidents. And these guys killed it for 20 minutes. The Broadway was out of this world. One of the greatest matches I've ever shot live.
I was lucky enough in 1967 to have been in the Cow Palace when I saw young Ray Stevens and young Pat Patterson against young Pepper Gomez and young Pedro Morales. And I promise you, no wrestling fan ever got more for their money than they did that night with those four great men.
Yeah, I was 0 years old when that was going on, so I kind of missed out on that. But
I was 12, and let me tell you, I knew that they gave the kitchen sink, to the fans.
Was your dad on the card? That's why you guys were there, probably en route to Hawaii or something?
We were en route to Hawaii, yes.
Yeah, because your dad was on a lot of Ed Francis, Lord James Blear's spectaculars. That venue, one of the greatest ever. You'd have the heels coming down one aisle, the faces on the other, and they'd wear flower lace. It was the most colorful territory I've ever shot. And the cards would be spectacular because guys are either going or coming from Japan. So I'll just shut up. But one of these mega cards, Sheik against Terry Funk on top, Falls Count Anywhere. They were all over. And then the tag match for the AWA tag straps, Nick and Ray in an odd match against Bobo Brazil, and then Tri-WF Vince Senior champion Pedro Morales. The bottom match was Mil Mascaras against Lanny Moondog Maine. So that told you what a great card it was. Plus, they had a battle royal the very first time that Baba and Andre the Giant were ever in the same ring or same city together. And they're in this battle royal with guys like Gene Kiniski, Firpo, Ripper Roy Collins, on and on, Handsome Johnny Barron, all these great legends.
Do you know who had the attendance records in the Pacific Northwest of Oregon and Washington?
Oh.
Bourne versus Maine. Tough Tony Bourne against Lonnie Maine.
Yep.
And I'm not saying they didn't get defeated later or raise ticket prices or whatever, but I mean, they were the bar that it was Lonnie Maine who had more ring color in his little finger. I'm telling you, it's like, and unfortunately, did he not have a car wreck or something?
He had a car wreck. It was very unusual to main event two major territories at a time. And he and Piper were main eventing for both Shire and San Francisco and LaBelle, my two home base territories in LA. And Lonnie was driving by himself, and a drunk driver hit him. He was going up the 5 freeway from LA to, San Francisco. and the drunk driver hit him. I forget if it was just across the grapevine, and killed him. And he was just absolutely incredible. One of the goofiest, funniest guys, one of the greatest talkers, great ring, either as a face or heel. He did everything, but it was weird because he and Piper were a heel tag team in LA, but at the very same time, and we got their TV, they got ours. He was huge over babyface against Piper as the heel at the Cow Palace. So it was kind of nutso. It was like Blassie, most beloved LA babyface of all time, and they would get our TV, and he was like the hated heel working Bruno and Morales.
I got to say, Freddie Blassie, when I was 12 and 13 years old in Hawaii, treated me very well. So did Nick Bockwinkel and Jim Haiti and even handsome Johnny Barron. You know, and everybody was, and I remember people that were nice to me when I was a kid. Nick Bockwinkel, I mean, that guy treated me like I was a man. He says, he went up to Randy and I, he said, "Hello, men." And then, you know, he had all that charisma and everything. And what a phenomenal champion he was.
Didn't you guys talk about being sons of famous wrestlers? His dad, Warren, total legend. You guys had a lot in common.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I'll tell you what, I love the wrestling business for what it's done for me, and I'm glad I survived it. But I'm also glad that it's over. You know what I'm saying? Because I am just, not that I'm exhausted. And I mean, you know, COVID-19 is the reason I decided to do this now, because I couldn't visit my grandchildren anyway. So I said, well, I might as well, you know, come here. And that way, in case it's lousy, I'm still young enough to come home if I'm not happy.
Now, did your kids ever express that they wanted to be in pro wrestling, or that they ever wanted to follow in your footsteps?
Well, I only have one daughter,
and
she was not interested in wrestling, and I was definitely not interested in making her a wrestler. I think if you want to be a wrestler, nobody can stop you, and if you don't want to, nobody can make you.
And I wanted to know, what was your favorite territory to perform in, that you think, when you look back on it?
Looking back, my favorite territory was Amarillo, Texas, because I got to work with the Funks, Dory and Terry. And I was absolutely thrilled that they chose me to work with. You know, they saw something in me, and I was just young, and I didn't know what was going on, but I knew to listen. And you know what? If you're willing to listen, a great worker can take you to any level.
Now, do you ever look back on your wrestling experience and had wished that you had had more titles, or did that ever mean anything to you to get maybe a run at the Intercontinental belt or anything like that in the WWF?
Yeah, of course. If I were booking it, I would have had all the titles. But the thing is, I just showed up, did what I was told, and made the best of it.
But did you ever want to hold one of the titles, or ever be maybe tag champion?
There is no wrestler that didn't want to hold all of the titles, but only Bruno Sammartino got to keep one.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe you and your brother would have made a very interesting tag team champions for the WWF. If they had decided to work it that way, I think you and your brother would have been very interesting.
The saddest words of tongue or pen are these 4 words: what might have been.
That's absolutely true. Is there something that you wish that you could, is there someone that you could have wished that you would have been working a program with, or maybe a series of matches with? Was there someone that you wanted to work with but never had the opportunity to?
Well, I don't mean to negate your question. Of course, I loved working with Terry Funk, Bob Orton Jr., Harley Race. But I have to say, you probably knew it anyway, that Terry Funk is not doing well.
Right.
You knew that?
I've had alert.
Yeah, and I have his number, but I didn't want to call him because I just don't want to talk to him right now. Last time I called him, it wasn't him. And it was
sad.
And I love Terry Funk. I love Dory. and my father loved Dory Sr. You know, we've been friends forever. They were from Hammond, Indiana, which is near Chicago. So I'm telling you, Terry's not doing well, and I love Terry, and what a worker.
You know the problem, Lanny, and I was going to have him on the COVID con, he and J.J. Dillon, but both were having memory issues, and their daughters asked me not to after we'd already advertised them as my guests, because both daughters didn't want them. They want fans to have them in their prime, in their memories. And Terry lost his longtime wife, who put up with him, and they were one of wrestling's great love stories. They were together like way over 40 years. Vicky died about 18 months ago, and the memory and all that stuff has gone way downhill, and he's been grieving, big time. So that accelerates, the memory problems and all of the other junk. Plus, they sold the ranch. He's living by himself in this place, and his daughter comes in when she can from work to pay his bills, get his groceries and stuff. But he goes at least minimum once a day to go visit her gravesite. So he's really, any of us, if we lost our spouse, if we've been with something like that,
And it's so sad because he had personality and now he doesn't. It's gone.
Yeah, no, I'm going to ask a very Evan-like question, which is that, can you tell us a little bit about all the challenges of being a father and wrestling at the same time, and being on the road, and what it was like as a challenge for your family to be wrestling so much for the WWF and not being able to be at home?
I hear you, but I'm not going to blame the WWF for my divorce. I look in the mirror for that. First of all, nobody held a gun to my head when I married her. And then secondly, if it doesn't work out, what are you going to do? Blame Vince? The thing is, my father was married 61 years, separated only by death.
Wow.
And I'm never going to make that. I'm never going down that aisle again. But what I'm not interested in Miss Right. I'm interested in Miss Right now.
Right.
But do you feel like, explain a little bit more of the pressures of what it was like to be married and be on the road so much and raising a daughter at that same time.
It's a no-win situation, like in Star Trek. It's a no-win scenario.
The Kobayashi.
Yes, there you go.
Kobayashi Maru scenario. Yes, but well, I mean, do you feel that affected your relationship with your daughter much, or was it something that was a problem at the time, but now you've gone past it and your daughter doesn't have any ill feelings about your time in the ring? Or
well, we get along beautifully now, and I always thought we got along well anyway. But my theory is, if you can't have a 10, at least go for a 5, and then build it from there.
So, buddy, Lanny has Miss Right now sitting there, so we should start wrapping this up.
Yeah,
right, Lanny?
She's very she helps me with my Spanish though.
Lanny, can you see this? I want to show you this.
That's Terry Funk.
Yeah, Kerry, it's my photo of Terry Funk from about 20 some odd years ago that's posterized for an album cover of one of his caretakers now. Did some interview with him, I guess, about a year ago when, Terry has his good days with long-term memory and sometimes not, but that's one of my bloody cover shots of the great Terry Funk. His many looks. He was like Madonna in that every year, like in the 70s, we didn't know what he was going to look like. Was he going to have the bleached blonde hair like Lanny Poffo in Detroit? Or was he going to have the goatee look and the long hair, short hair? So he was always constantly changing. Like
Chainsaw Charlie, when he was Chainsaw Charlie later in his career.
We're talking the 70s, though, when Terry, every year, he came up with a new look. Goatee, beard, no beard.
Dr. Mike, do you still call him?
Yeah. I was calling him every week. And then he would call here to me. And when my wife would answer, this is when I knew things were a little bit off. He would say, "Who the hell are you?" He'd call here and he'd say, "What have you done with Mike?" You know, because
Why are you done with Mike? Why are you done with Mike?
that was kind of heartbreaking. But yeah, I do call him, and JJ too is kind of holed up in Delaware. JJ Dillon, because
JJ Dillon, yeah, he's a fantastic man. Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Tell him I love him. Tell him Lanny Poffo says hi.
I sure will. I will.
I can't call him myself because I see, even, Paul Christie, a very dear friend of mine, he's 82 years old today, but I can't call him because it's not the same guy and he doesn't know where he is.
He's so entertaining when I shot him in Bruiser's territory, but 15 years ago, we'd see him every year. He'd come to CAC and he'd do magic. As you probably know, Paul Christie was a great magician.
Yeah.
As a side note to being a great wrestler in the Midwest.
Well, he's not doing magic now.
No.
He's breathing in and out. Breathing in and out is his magic. He's 82 today.
Well, I know that you do have to get going, but I did want to ask you one final question, if you can entertain us for just a few more minutes, and that is, you said that you don't watch wrestling now. Do you have a feeling like why that is, and also what you think wrestling maybe should do to try to bring back an audience again?
Yeah, they should fire all the writers and just let bookers handle everything. Bookers. And by bookers, I mean booker, not two bookers, because two bookers is a fight. Too many cooks spoil the broth. A booker is better than a writer, because you can't take personalities like Rowdy Roddy Piper, Jake the Snake Roberts, Macho Man Randy Savage. You can't write for them. You got to tell them what you want and let them surprise you, because they're so great they can surprise you. That's why nobody has personality now. They're not allowed to. Everything's cookie cutter. You can't
script.
Yeah,
overscript it. Make it too pre-planned.
Yeah, so can you imagine telling Roddy Piper what to say? Just tell him the general idea and just be amazed. Or Macho Man. Ooh, yeah.
It's best illustrated. You remember from Hawaii, Lanny, Curtis Iakea, did you ever see him cut promos there? Extemporaneous, spontaneous promos that Nick Bockwinkel said are the best that ever occurred in the business, better than anybody. And when he got to WWF as a heel manager, etc., he had to read off prompters and stuff, and it just wasn't the same. But when the boys can do, obviously, your brother was fantastic. You were Ronnie Garvin in ICW. You just tell them the bullet points and you let them go.
Well, the thing is, Randy was a hybrid between Curtis the Bull Iakea and Pampero Firpo.
That's right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's where he got, oh, yeah. And this turning the back to the camera, he stole that from King Curtis Iakea.
That's right.
And then the way Curtis would start in a whisper, build up to a scream, down to a whisper again, hills and valleys. And Randy stole that. And what's wrong with that? You know what I'm saying? Because what's old is new.
Best. You steal from the best.
And it's like if you steal from one guy, it's plagiarism. If you steal from 100 guys, it's research.
I'm sorry that you're short on time because there's so many more questions I'd like to ask. I just want to
tell you what, we can do it again sometime. And the thing is, Marisela here cooked a 5-course meal, and I feel like I'm being rude. So,
and we would want to hold her up either. For 1 second though, I just want to say, as a fan, not just of you, but of your brother is missed every day by almost everybody that was a fan in that time period. He touched a lot of us with his skill, his bravery, what he did in the ring. He's been a role model for so many people, and so many people admire him so greatly, and I'm one of those that admire.
Well, on May 20th, it will be 10 years that he passed.
Oh, it's unbelievable. It's hard to believe he's gone now. It's hard to believe he's been gone that long.
I got good news and bad news.
Your father, Lanny, I miss your dad big time.
I've got good news and bad news about my brother's passing. the good news, that my father was lucky enough to die 1 year before.
I remember that.
The bad news is my mother collapsed. She was alive to see it. And I took care of her for 6 years. And I finally said, do you want to live or do you want to die? And she says, I want to live. I said, then notify your face because you haven't smiled since Randy died. She says, I can't. I said, fake it till you make it.
Wow.
So I used to, when she got shingles, I used to bring people over to the house. How's your mother? I said, come on visit. And they said, my mother's got syphilis. She says, I do not. I've got shingles. But see, there is shame attached to syphilis, but there's no shame in shingles. So I would say that, I said, well, what's the difference? It starts with an S. But she would, but that would get her laughing. And you know what? Without laughter, I'm a health nut. But more important than your diet is your laughter. Laughter, happy, smile, laughter, it makes healthier people. So
it's a wonderful note. If fans were interested in following you, or if you've got anything that's coming up that you'd like to promote, I would love to have our fans be able to.
The only thing I do anymore is Cameo. Lanny Poffo on Cameo. I've got a nice reasonable price, and that's the only thing I do. So I just did one this morning, and I don't let a lot of time go by. I don't wait for the 4 days. I do it the first day. So I do my best, and everybody so far has given me 5 stars out of 5.
How can fans check you out on Cameo?
Well, go on geniuslannypoffo.com, and there's a link. Geniuslannypoffo.com is my website, and on it, in the front page, is my speech that I made in San Jose in 2015 for the Macho Man, because if anybody remembers my name, it'll be because of his.
I think people remember you because you truly are the genius, and this has been one of the most enjoyable interviews that I've done with anyone.
I've enjoyed it too. Let's do it again, and not too often, but once in a while. If you can't get a real guest, call me up.
You are Lanny, right now.
Let me tell him this, Lanny. The former Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, is making $2,500 a pop on Cameo. You need to up your prices.
Well, the thing is, she gave up a lot for that.
That's right. That's right.
A schlong.
She used to have perfect diction, and
I think a limerick is coming up. I think you're getting ready to write another limerick as we speak.
I want to see if Lanny's 1975-76 book, is it Rhyme and Wrestling, is still available. Can people still? You got to make another press.
Only on Kindle. Only on Kindle.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So anyway, my point is, in the Garden of Eden sat Adam. He was stroking the loins of his madam. He was laughing with mirth. Just to think here on earth, there were only 2 balls, and he had them. All right, everybody.
Note, on
thank
that
you,
note,
Lanny.
we'll say goodbye to you. And thank you so much. This has been a wonderful interview.
Evan, thank you for that deal we made. Remember when we first met? And you held up with your part of the bargain. I held up with my part, and we've been friends ever since.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to tell them what it is, but you know what it is. Anyway, thank you, Evan. Thank you, Dr.
Lanny.
Reno. Thank you, buddy.
We'll see everyone next week. Thank you so much. Good night.
Gusto es mío. Adios.
Okay.